We've always been trying to find ways of getting better production value, but still seeing big, expansive environments. Most of the time, we've been accomplishing that by shooting on green screen and extending our sets, but we started testing how we could start using some of the LED technology that's starting to make it possible to project images in the same way as you would with a rear screen projection, but you're not limited by size. So we ran some tests and we decided it was our time to get into this.
Way outside my comfort zone now. Move away from the engine, now. I choose to live, 100%. I choose to live, absolutely.
It's not that it is brand new, it's been pioneered by a lot of people prior to us, but we wanted to push the boundaries.
We call it the AR wall, and specifically Star Trek Discovery calls it the holodeck. We're the first ones in Canada to be using such a massive virtual environment. We really do get to build any kind of world that we want.
Casing is canarium alloy. It's one of the strongest metals there is.
Our production designer will design the environment, and then our design gurus and set builders, the virtual folks, will build that, and then it will be projected on the wall. So when our actors go into any given space, they are able to see the environment that they're in rather than staring at a green screen.
This is the whole wall. There's a piece of the wall that's the frame of the camera that's, like, if they're shooting my close-up here, there's a piece of the wall that's in the background, right? It's reacting to what the camera's doing appropriately, so it doesn't look like it's moving around, but that it maintains the right kind of relationship to me. That makes a huge difference.
Well, the AR wall was like a teleportation tool that allowed us to literally go to these new planets and new environments. We were able to use the AR wall to go down to Radvik 5 and also to go into the jail cell, which would have been a massive set that would have been impossible to build in real life. To the 10C planet, we were able to use this AR wall to take us to these new and strange worlds that we've never been to before.
Tunde said that they started calling it the holodeck because it's how we're able to go to different places, kind of wherever we want to go.
The challenge with green screen is just that it's so expensive, because any given shot then needs to be addressed and paid for. We would have to limit ourselves to the number of green screen shots that we would use, which means that in the writer's room, if we're not going to go on location for something, we really need to think hard about the environment and how many pages we put in that environment. But with the AR wall, we're able to do entire storylines in an AR environment.
You're able to build one visual effect asset per location, and you can shoot that over and over again, and it doesn't cost you every time you look at it.
We had 2.5 months to design the specs for it, to engineer it, to build a stage riser system, and to start developing this whole system that needed to be online in the new year. And this is all in the middle of a pandemic.
The ceiling weighs like 90,000 pounds. How do we hang a 90,000 pound ceiling and not have it fall down?
The guys at Pixo have been wonderful in figuring out the technology, how big it needed to be for Star Trek, what it needed to do for Star Trek.
One of the things about the AR wall is that it can't produce a hard light. Elements like the sun setting, all those kind of things are very hard to recreate on the practical side of things.
The wall does a tremendous amount of lighting, but we always felt that we wanted to be able to have a different type of lighting and afford us the flexibility to be able to introduce hard light as well as soft light and more tailored light.
Franco came up with a light that we designed that really works like an accordion. What it involves, though, is having 4 of the panels taken out and having lines come in.
They're basically lights that collapse and basically are a foot wide, but then expand to 12 by 16 feet. And they help us light the space in ways that is pretty unique and really helpful.
So these boxes here are the accordions. We have 11 of them currently. You can actually unfold them and bring them down, right down to eye level. We can expand them and we can rig off of them as well, so we can add other kind of spotlights if we need them.
We started the actual construction in November, and we had to turn the stage over to the Discovery crew January 15th, and we were still making final touches January 15th.
What you're looking at right now is the holodeck. This set and this space is part of virtual production. This white screen that you see all the way around here, including the ceiling. So right now, I just have this white online so we can calibrate our system. If you look up, all of the cameras that have a red ring, they constitute our motion capture volume. These are overlapping cameras, overlapping eyes that see the world and then calculate in 3 dimensions where an object is. This is called rigid body tracking, and that's what we use in order to make sure that we have the correct perspective for the people that are sort of inside this space. This is one of our virtual environments. As you can see here, we have real life objects like these boxes here that are also represented in 3D space in the virtual environment. We have artists that will work to blend floors between the real life and the virtual life. And that way this allows your eye to sort of play the trick that you're in the same space.
If he doesn't do this, the hologods will not allow the holodeck to work. And he's speaking to the spirits in ways that they can understand and appreciate it. But you'll watch him do this for like 10 minutes. And then, at some point, everything starts to work.
Okay, so what's happening right now is he is calibrating the volume that I was talking to you about. When you look back at the cameras, you're noticing that they're all green or they have a blue ring that's spinning around them. The wand that he has is emitting IR. This IR is sort of registered in a pattern to say, this is the marker that I am, this is where I am. All of these cameras pick that up simultaneously. What's happening right now is all of these that you're seeing here, they're the actual pattern of that wand, the thing that he's waving around. We collect enough samples until it is ready to calibrate. And then once it's ready to calibrate, it then refines the position of all of those cameras. The whole idea is our virtual world and our physical world are represented in the same spaces. And this allows us to put the camera that's physically there in the exact same space as the camera that's virtually there. This is the back of the wall that you were just looking at. It's made up of a lot of panels, a lot of LEDs. Each LED panel is actually made up of modules. This is a module here, 1, 2, 3, 4. This allows you to replace them if they get damaged or if there's something wrong with them technically. All of these are sort of controlled by what we use as the Bromptons. These are Brompton XDs. They are something that distributes the image to that particular panel at that particular part of the wall. The ceiling allows us to have global illumination. So if you have a person who is in the environment, if they're in the volume and they have a lot of reflective materials, it allows a real life version of that to be reflected in. So you don't have green screen that you're removing, you have the real life lighting at the time that you're shooting. Our ceiling is quite complex, to be honest. There is the LEDs themselves, which are hung, but then also a series of scaffolding and rigging points to allow our teams, our extended teams, to hang chandeliers, to hang stunt ropes, to do more complex things inside the volume itself. Sometimes you can see sparks falling from the ceiling or fog elements or things like that, special effects. This can all be rigged through the ceiling here. So this is one of our camera trackers. It goes on top of the camera.
We have unique tracking markers that we build for each camera. We use that to get the 3D position of a camera so that we can put that into the game engine. And then the game engine can create something called an off-axis projection based on that camera's position.
The engine is basically projecting what this camera sees onto this wall here, which ends up translating onto our practical wall.
This tracker here is the projection point to the rest of the virtual environment. And so this allows us to look behind objects. This allows us to get parallax, because as I move this, the world moves as if I was moving in real life. So right now, we've attached the tracker to your camera, and this allows our mocap system to see you, and this allows you to be the perspective where everything is emanating from. So if we walk over, you will have parallax. You will be able to see what it's like to see through the eyes of the cameras that we use to shoot the show. You can see behind a corner. And of course, there are caveats to how it all works. You are within, 3 to 4 feet from that wall, and ordinarily we would suggest that we keep a small distance. This is to avoid technical challenges like moire. This isn't a magic bullet that solves everything. This is a tool that people can use in order to gain very, very valuable visual insight as to what they want to shoot. This is a tenuous situation. You need this thing to run at 24 frames or faster at all times. It still takes a tremendous amount of work to get these things optimized and get them running.
There's a lot of sophisticated systems that come together that make this all work. And when something breaks or a certain section of the wall doesn't show up the way it's supposed to, it's often very, very difficult to solve it, especially on the spot when you have an entire crew there and it's just not working.
When it works beautifully, but sometimes it would sort of do that at first before they, really refined it.
You start to run into frame rate issues where it's not quite running at the camera speed. And so there's a very fine line between having sets that you can actually shoot practically and not have to get too far into visual effects in the post side of things as well.
The one thing we're directing on the AR wall is a bit different is I can no longer point two cameras at the same thing. I have to point them at 90 degrees because the AR wall can only manufacture one parallax reality within the frame that it's looking at. So if I were to put two cameras, it would be confused. Which reality am I creating? You have to make sure that the lens is seeing a different part of the AR wall in order for the AR wall to render both realities within that lens. In order to shoot an asset on the wall, the first thing you have to do is engage our concept artists with the art department. And they draw up all these beautiful visuals of what the environment should look like.
We had a very imaginative art department with really strong artists and concept artists and set designers, and we just went to town and tried to extend and make it as unusual and fabulous as we possibly could.
Let's see where we are.
Once we have those modeled environments and approved concepts of these settings, then those get brought over to the Unreal system and ingested by the Pixo team.
We would take any concept art that the client would provide, or any images really that could just kind of hint at the final image that they want to produce, and then we would kind of digest all that and break it down and figure out, okay, what are the best ways we can approach it and how can we get this into our environment and still work.
For a matte painter at Pixelmondo, we are responsible for creating the background extensions, creating HDRIs, sky dome maps, and then we'll bring it into Engine to help with the environment.
The 3D models will be built, and then surfacing them, texturing them, making sure that they all look as realistic as possible, or at least they line up to what's built on set.
On the one side, you have these digital environments being created, and on the other side, we have our traditional set elements being built and crafted and sculpted and painted. At various points along those lines that are working in parallel, we need to kind of connect the one side to the other.
And we start to look at it from different angles and see that the dimensions are good, and the DPs are now involved. And the DPs are going in and lighting each individual light as if they would light an actual physical set.
Making the virtual world and the real world come together was probably our biggest challenge. They'll build the asset, we'll build the set. There'll be some differences, and we'll start to alter the lighting in the set, which then affects the lighting on the wall.
The blend point is where the practical set ends and we go into the virtual screen. The toughest thing for blend points is reflections. We'll have a reflective floor, practically, and that's reflecting the wall. And it's kind of this hamster wheel of if you change something in the wall, it reflects on the floor, but that reflection isn't as intense as it is in our virtual environment.
It's just kind of this process of blending until the two worlds kind of just are one.
Once the asset is on the wall, once it looks good, it's very intuitive to shoot, to know where to put the cameras and what to do.
My first time on the AR wall was the opening of our season 4 on my home planet of Kaminar. Our council chamber is a little bit underwater, so the Baul can be behind the glass and Kelpians can interact with each other. So that was such a gorgeous backdrop.
You essentially have an extended reality that starts about where it would in the physical reality. So that was still very challenging, but technically a more feasible setting.
With green screen, you have to imagine, you have to look at pictures and say, like, oh, this is what's going to go there later. On the AR wall, you're in it. Now, again, some of it might be out of focus because the camera's not looking at it.
They sent us back. Why?
but it's still there and you're still in the environment. So it actually helps your imagination more, I think.
I mean, the difference between having to look at a bright green screen and imagine an ancient tomb on a frozen moon somewhere in the galaxy, the difference between having to do that on nothing versus having to like act and actually be looking at that is unmeasurable. Hopefully you'll be able to kind of see it in the acting. I think it will feel a bit more steeped in, like we're really on an alien planet, and I think that will be really cool. You know, I just think that'll add this veracity.
This feels like a mausoleum.
We had built the whole thing out, and it was designed to a T. It was looking perfect. We throw it up on the stage, and nothing works. It's back down to like 5 frames per second, which you need 24 to run a show. So it was a matter of the entire team coming together at the very end there to take everything like, okay, we can cut this, we can crunch this down, we can take that, we can compress it, and then through 1,000 little steps like that, you kind of get it to a point where it can shoot.
So we learned a lot from that environment of what not to do. That really set us up for the whole rest of the season, because as the art department concepts came in, the environments got more ambitious and bigger and more interaction and flashing lights and all these other things that, because of our past experiences, that we were able to achieve those.
We hadn't done a ton of shooting in Shuttle Bay because it was a big green screen. It was very expensive, and as writers, we would have to think, does it have to be in the Shuttle Bay or can it be in a hallway? And 9 times out of 10, we would land on the hallway. So it really opens up a lot of opportunities for us story-wise. It's a lot of fun.
I think our most challenging blend was the Disco Shuttle Bay floor, because it's this hexagonal pattern. So not only do we have to blend material qualities and surface qualities, but we also have to blend the pattern to match up exactly.
This is virtual production hard mode. We have hexagonal pattern 270 degrees around our volume. So our lineup had to be flawless. As well, it was a semi-reflective floor, which is very difficult to do.
The writers, Michelle, Alex, they set the bar high. They wanted us to be in a gas planet with an alien species on a scale that just kind of blows your mind. And how can we use this technology of extending our sets on the holodeck to its utmost?
The last environments that we did on Discovery for the gas planet had everything that we had learned over the whole season all brought into one environment. So it had huge, vast spaces. It also had hero foreground elements that had to match what existed practically in the set. It had animated light, which was something that we didn't have at the beginning of the season, and then eventually we were able to do it. It also had moving objects, little things like that add up together to make the whole world feel alive.
I'm very proud and happy to say that we really did, achieve what we wanted to, and people were really eager to make this happen.
We needed creative people, we needed technical people, we needed technicians, completely imaginative writers and directors, production designers, artists, art directors, to bring all their different experience and just making this whole thing work.
The fact that we were able to build it in the first place and utilize that technology, which is pretty much still brand new, in a microscopic period of time, I just think it really speaks to the level of excellence that the people in this company are operating at.